Good. All right, welcome to the Studio Corner podcast. John, is it Laux?
Laux.
John Laux.
Hard X.
What is that? What is that?
It's German.
It's German?
Yeah.
You don't look German at all.
Oh yeah. I mean, my mom was born in Mexico, but my father's Eastern. I'm a Euro mutt.
Wow.
I'm just an American mutt.
I like it. I like it. How are you, man?
I'm good.
It's really exciting for me to have you on here.
Cool.
Because I mean, it's funny because I met you in the shop.
Yeah.
And you were the guy, you became the guy that I needed to talk to because no one else was as thorough and as knowledgeable as you.
Thanks.
And then little by little, I found out more about you. I'm like, holy crap, this guy is, legendary guitar player. Like he shreds, like all this cool stuff. And it's so funny how many different people come through that shop, whether they're working or buying or just this little like tiny building that has such a huge community. Those of you listening, we're talking about instrumental music on Thousand Oaks Boulevard. Has been brought up a lot on the show.
It's a great store.
It's a little community, but it's so cool to finally have you on here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm stoked.
Very, very stoked. So before we get into all the fun stuff, I don't know if I've had a lot of I do know I haven't had a lot of guitar players, especially ones that have been in successful bands or been successful at guitar playing.
Okay.
And I every time I do, I like to ask them, why were you drawn to guitar in the first place?
Huh. My dad was into jazz fusion, so I was like Yes and King Crimson and Mahavishnu Orchestra. So he always thought that shit was badass. Excuse my English, but he had a guitar lying around the house, and I always saw it, and he didn't play too much, but I was always really interested in it. So I started taking guitar lessons. And my guitar teachers were old shredders,
Oh, is that how you got into the metal thing?
Yeah, intentionally or not. Yeah, they always just had cool pointy guitars, and I was like, "What's that?" And it was a Paul Gilbert tape. He's like, "Oh, that guy's bad." I'm like, "Why do you have it if it's bad?" He's like, "No, it's badass." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'll check it out."
I love Paul Gilbert.
And I guess when I was pretty young, like in middle school, like I was a pretty awkward kid. Didn't really communicate well. Only had a couple friends, so I just loved music. I turned to music, and I was in love with it. And I just wanted to replicate everything I heard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just kept playing, and I felt like I could communicate better, with an instrument.
I feel like that's such a common story too. Especially in those years when like we're going through all that weird shit that's happening, and communication becomes a new thing. And I mean, I love hearing that people found a way to communicate with the music.
Mm-hmm.
So the metal thing, you think it was because your teachers, or do you think that, what were you drawn to that?
So, well, when I first started listening to stuff like on my own, I got into like my first CD was like an Aquabat CD. It was a ska band, and then I got into Nirvana and I got into The Cure. But then when I was like 13 or 14, I heard Tornado of Souls by Megadeth.
Oh man!
And I was like, that's so cool, and like that's why I played a Jackson Kelly, and I just kind of fell down a rabbit hole of metal. And a lot of musicians, at least in our generation, if you talk to them, they started off with like metal or hardcore.
Yeah.
Because when you're 15 and you have a lot of
angst.
Yeah, that's the best release for it.
I could not agree more.
Yeah. So that was the initial attraction.
I love that. It's funny because I probably said this 1,000 times in my life because I've had to explain to people, like, they're like, how can you listen to such angry music? I'm like, one, I wouldn't say it's angry. Two, it's not that it makes me, angry. What it does, it like takes the burden of what I'm feeling.
As a release.
Yeah, it's like that can be angry or frustrated or upset for me.
Most of the sweetest people you'll talk to probably listen to metal or something. Or, metalheads are usually pretty passive, relaxed people. It's because they get that stuff out,
Yeah.
And I think the music's like, it's not super direct. It doesn't talk about like relationships or like day-to-day stuff. It's like absurd, like dragons and chasms and wizards. It's cool. Yeah.
And even when it gets like, even if it is straight up, it's like embedded in such a heavy riff or such heavy music that's like, it never really hits you to the point where like I'm sitting here thinking about someone specific. It kind of takes you somewhere else, at least for me.
Well, there's a release and there's a joy in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's too cool. I love that. So with metal guitar, now I play all kinds of different guitar.
Same. Yeah.
As you do. Yeah.
I grew out of that.
But when I do play metal guitar, it's funny, like it's the most natural movement for my hands. It's like, it's just natural. Like it feels good. I like playing it. But on the other side of that spectrum, it's also the hardest for me to like harness, to say like, this is what it means to be a metal guitar player. These are the components that go into playing guitar fast and heavy and, writing riffs like that. Give me an acoustic guitar, I can write songs all day.
Yeah.
Without that thought. So for you, if there was like a list, or like if you had like a student and they asked like, hey, I'm not even metal, but I want to learn to play heavy guitars, I want to be kind of get that driving factor, what are the things that make that kind of guitar playing?
You kind of touch on all that. It's really rhythmic, it's really kind of percussive, and it's kind of technical. Like you have to work on physical chops. Where there's like, an acoustic guitar, or kind of most kinds of rock and pop, you could kind of just strum the chords, or like let the chords hang out.
Yeah.
Metal, it's all about like dun dun dun. Like you're playing with the time.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there with the metronome, just going through eighths, sixteenths, and just weaving through all these different kind of patterns. And that's really the core of it, just playing patterns with your fingers, slow, and then you have to progress to playing it faster.
So were there specific because I know like when I was coming up, there was this like pull off thing that my teacher taught me that got me to learn to play fast with my left hand.
Legato.
It's just like playing, basically play the whole scale, but like pulling off and like
that's legato. Yeah,
all this stuff. And that helped me gain speed and all the muscle. And that was like a specific thing, or like groups of four, like natural minors.
Yeah.
Like,
but then you have to lock it to this hand.
Yeah. So then it was like for you, was there like a specific thing that like kind of took you to that next level?
There's a software called Guitar Pro.
Okay.
And it was it was awesome. It had the guitar and a piano roll, and you could download all these songs, and it showed you like all the notes, and because tabs aren't in time, and most guitar players don't start reading sheet music. I didn't do that till later.
It's just not a thing anymore.
Yeah, there's a joke that lute players used to read tab too, actually. So since the dawn of time, guitar players have been reading tab.
Yeah, basically.
But it was great software because I could slow the parts of music down, or I could look up all these songs, I'm like, what's that crazy part? And I could just go on the internet, put it in my computer, and see it on the screen and make it play like at half the speed.
Really?
And I would just sit there and I would just work out all these parts. And it was stuff like Death and Children of Bodom, like all
Death, by the way.
Yeah.
Total, just like old school classic right there.
But it was like I was like seeing the source code or something. I was seeing all the notes and how the guitar harmonies would line up.
So it would put all the tablature?
It would put the tablature, but it would play it through MIDI. It sounded like it was an old video game.
Oh my goodness!
But it was cool. The guitar lines, the bass lines, and even the drum patterns. And I could see how it all linked up together. And then I could open up my own thing and try to make my own song, and like I kind of learned the language, and I was able to like look closely at these songs and take them apart and play with them.
That's so interesting, the fact that like they have all the layers too, because it like kind of allows you to see what you're jamming with.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the hardest thing about learning a cover song or copying someone is trying to translate it into yourself feeling it. Like, it's like, I can learn that riff, but can I play it like that?
Yeah.
It's like, imagine if I had the whole band playing with you, or like I understood where everyone was saying, like, when the drummer hits this, I know this note comes in. Like, there's such a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a synergy of everything going on.
Yeah.
So that's so cool.
Yeah.
How have I not heard about this?
A big part of learning is like learning how to emulate. I mean, that's where you start. Now, I've heard people with like a different attitude, like the guy from Extreme, Nuno Betancourt.
Dude, I love Nuno.
He was like, I didn't want to bother. I just did it on my own. I just used my ear and listened to it and picked apart the notes. And that totally makes sense too. But in a way, he was learning how to deconstruct it, and put it in his own voice. So yeah, I think it's a good place to start.
That's rad.
Yeah.
I love Nuno. I saw Generation X when they were in town.
Cool.
That was out of control.
Sick.
That was like the most like, it was a lot. It was a lot.
He's amazing. Cool. Yeah, I love him.
Yeah. Great thing they're doing. Anyway, so moving forward, I want to, if it's cool with you, I'd actually really curious to know a little bit about starting Warbringer.
Sure.
And not just like, oh, the famous band, because Warbringer's badass. I mean, that was funny. I was listening to the first album for like the last week.
Oh, I can't stand that record.
Really? Yeah. Why don't you like that record?
That was the first thing we wrote. We were like 16 or 17 when we wrote a lot of those songs.
That's why it was so like, you could feel that.
We went in the studio and we didn't have a lot of experience yet, like the record we did after we did a year of touring, we were like, I felt like we were a legitimate band at that point. But the first record, I know people love it,
It's a good album,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, I know. But it's just, if it's hard for me because I know I could have done better,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we didn't know that we had to learn. And that, we had to make those mistakes in the studio the first time around.
Yeah.
And then I learned how, like, I can't just trust the producer. I have to look out.
Yeah.
I have to know, I have to pay attention to what's happening.
That is such an important statement. That is a huge statement, though. Because, I mean, even the top pros, like, we bring on producers to make it good. Like, oh, I wrote the song, I did my part, producer does the rest. Like, that can't be the case. Like, you can't let like, the musician, the writer, no matter who you are, like, you have to know at least to some extent, you have to feel kind of what you want. You have to be able to communicate that somehow, because it's literally like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Like, imagine like you give someone a blue sheet. Like, I like this blue sheet. Let's make it shiny, and they come back to you with like a purple sheet. It's like, you didn't make it shiny, you just made it purple.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's what happens when you just let someone else.
It's a different process. Playing in the band is one thing, and then putting it to tape, committing it. It's a different thing. Is that guitar tone really working? Are these parts actually working?
Yeah.
When you sit there and listen to whatever is playing, yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, asking that these parts, like, especially with Warbringer, because it's so riff driven. Like, you guys just have badass riff after badass riff. Like, it's a lot of decision making, I imagine, when it comes to the songwriting, to make sure that this riff sounds different than that one, doesn't sound too much like that song. How many metal bands have made that mistake, right? But like the mentality to approach it, especially as a guitar player, and I can feel that one, to go in the studio and say, hey, this riff doesn't work. Like, that's swallowing pride, I think, in my.
Yeah, but it's about the song.
So is that something that you had to learn over time, like to realize it's about the song?
I would have these cool solos or these cool riffs, but maybe they just were distracting. Or what's a singer going to do? Because that's what people are looking for, is the hooks and the vocals. That's what makes it catchy. So like if I'm doing too much, or if I'm not giving them a good hook, the song's going to fall flat on its face, because it's all about like creating these memorable moments. Yeah. Whether it is a little guitar line or a vocal hook, but you need to make sure that those things, that's kind of the center of it.
Well, see, when you say it sounds so logical, and I agree with you. Like, it's very much, it is about the whole piece. It's about the song. It's about getting all those, great parts.
Everything to work together. Yeah, we had a drummer that was like amazing, but he kept trying to throw these like fancy Meshuggah Herta beats into this one part.
Meshuggah.
But and he did it before that Meshuggah released Bleed, and he's bragging about it. But in that riff, in that context, it didn't work, and it always drove me crazy. Yeah. Because the part was just supposed to be like really heavy, really straightforward. Yeah. It didn't need these little.
But he wanted it in there.
Yeah.
See, that's what I mean. Like, you're getting past that as musicians, especially in a band environment, in a recording environment. Because, like, hey, I like what you said, committing it. That's such a great way to describe that. I love it. I'm going to use that from now on. Committing the music. Like, that's really badass. But like when you're like, you want to have every moment is like, okay, what's the best way to do this? Like, how do I make this powerful, when it's like, it doesn't need to have that mentality? Like, how many ripping solos can I have? It's like Kirk Hammett with a wah pedal. Like, stop pressing the wah pedal. It's not, every solo doesn't need that.
It works out.
It works. But yeah, I mean, because that's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, do you have? I mean, I imagine after the first record, you learned a lot about that.
Yeah, it's a push and a pull, and it's fun to work with other people. I wrote a lot of the material, but I never would finish a song by myself. I would always like to take the riffs in and see what the drummer would do. Maybe he had something that I didn't have in mind, or maybe the singer had an idea, and I'd sit there and just let him hum it out, what he was thinking. Nice. Because when you have everyone working together and they all feel like they're invested in the project, you're going to get a better project. Mm. And, we also had because we did so much touring, we always had different musicians coming in and out of the band. And I'd always try to incorporate them into the writing. So when they were on stage, they felt like they owned the material, because they would perform better. They'd be happier. The whole thing would be better and it's hard because there's a lot of give and take. You have to be able to listen, people are going to disagree with you. You might not get your way, but like in the end, with everyone fighting, they all want the best for it. Yeah. And that's kind of.
Well, it sounds like you kind of took like this almost father figure role of like, inviting, I mean, for lack of a better phrase. I mean,
someone had to figure it out.
Well, it's the thing, and it's impressive that you can, rise to the occasion to say, hey, it's about the song. It's about, you believe that if everyone has their investment in the song, it'll be performed better and delivered better, which I agree with. I think that's awesome. But you can't, you also can't deny at the end of that some people just don't have it, don't necessarily have a lot to give or to contribute. So I imagine as musicians came and went, like there was times that you had trouble getting them to be involved, or like, giving your best, but they were, throwing total crap your way. Like, how did you deal with that?
Well, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, you look for people's strengths. Everyone has strengths. No one's good at everything. Mm-hmm. And I just tried to find their strengths. By the time the second record came around, we weren't dealing with bad musicians. I got to work with some amazing musicians, and it was fun.
I guess it doesn't really work in your situation because you had the best coming through.
I guess, now I play in bands with my friends, and they might be deficient in some things, but some of them, the same thing, they have strengths. Yeah. Everyone has strengths, and sometimes you have to nurse it, and sometimes it takes a couple years, and it's so fun to watch people grow. Yeah. It takes time to get anywhere with music. It's
Such a rare personality for a guitar player too. We're like infamous for being cocky assholes. We're infamous for being, oh, we want everything to be our way, which I don't think it's true. I think it's just a stereotype that goes along with it, but it's so cool to hear you speak about it this way, to be so inviting and nurturing of the creativity of what they, because that's what's missing. I think that's what's missing in so many things. I talked about this with Kurt Piscara. We were talking about like
he's
why.
sick.
Yeah,
I told
Kurt.
you I think he's sick.
We were talking about it, about the idea like no one really jams together anymore. And it's like we're starving of musicians because everyone's hiding in their rooms, recording their own stuff, and like not bothering playing with other people, and missing out on this idea that if you nurture that, if you do collaborate, if you realize like it's like holding a heavy boulder. It's gonna be really hard to hold it by yourself, but if you let 3 people join in, you could probably move that boulder.
Yeah, and that's a big skill though. That's a skill you have to develop, playing with other people, learning how to listen to other people, learning how to be flexible with what you're playing to lock in with what someone else is playing.
Yeah. Well, also, I like what you said, how you would like write a riff and bring it to see what they would do with it.
Yeah.
Almost open-ended writing.
Yeah, because I knew what I wanted, but I wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not an insane drummer. What do you got?
Well, it's also it's such a trust factor too, because like do I trust this person to take what I've put my heart and soul into?
But we did though, because we worked pretty hard at it.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself nowadays working with other people where like you kind of hesitate, like, do I trust this person to work on what I'm bringing?
I don't waste my time with that.
You don't waste your time. Oh, damn, I like it. I like where your head's at. This is good. This is like straight up. I love that it's so natural for you though. I love that. It's funny as some people just have the ability to do something that's so hard to do naturally.
That's what I love. Yeah.
So it's great. So let's get back to work. I'm very curious as to like I want to talk about like your mindset, your drive, your why you started Warbringer. Like what was that whole process? What like got there? Like how to start a band successfully, I guess is what we could call that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can handle this.
I can handle this.
Well, I started making friends in high school, and the kind of music we wanted to play, like thrash metal in the early 2000s, wasn't popular. Metal was pretty commercial, and we wanted to play old school metal. And when we started out, I think we wanted to do power metal, but the guy we had singing couldn't do that,
Yeah.
So like, let's do what Creator does. Let's just bark it out, scream it out like Slayer or something. But it worked. It sounded cool.
Yeah.
And it was hard because we had the band was friends, and we would go to shows and meet other people in the area. We had someone that drove 2 hours out to play with us because it was hard to find people that were even willing to do that. But like being able to do it was even like another thing entirely. So it was just kind of fun at first. And then you have to be able to network. You have to go out and talk to other people, talk to other bands. And so we started looking at LA, and there's people from all over LA County, and there's a couple other bands that were doing the same thing that we were, like playing 80s thrash metal. And so we made friends with them. We started networking with them, and the band started growing. And we just did every show we could, and the show started getting pretty big. And it was just like 16-year-old kids doing these shows, and we were playing the whiskey, and we sold out the whiskey.
Oh wow!
I don't think anyone was older than 21, 22.
Holy crap!
In any of those bands. So it was kind of a cool time. And I guess you could say there was a little luck involved. Like some people came out, some record execs came out to check out these shows because they had a soft spot for that kind of music.
We all have
have
a little bit of a soft spot for that old school stuff.
They were happy to hear some old school metal again.
Yeah.
And we were kind of fortunate. We got kind of in like a bidding war between a couple record labels.
Really?
So we were able to negotiate a pretty decent contract.
Nice. How old were you? 16?
I was probably 17 or 18. That happened in my last year of high school.
Wow.
So it was pretty crazy, but we worked really hard at it. Like we'd practice like religiously every week. We'd pay money to go to these studios and try to record demos and EPs, and we try to do the whole thing by ourselves. And I think that's something that it's really important that people understand, that like just because you write a cool song, you're not going to get picked up by a label. It's not going to go anywhere if you don't promote it.
Yeah.
Or make it like a good package. Today it's totally different. Today, like, you need to put up like a YouTube video or put up like Spotify.
Yeah.
It's changed, but it's the same idea of like.
Well, it's also like, I mean, because it's so easy to put it up, like the more crap, like people, it is, everyone's putting it out there. Like people are, if they have that many options, they're not going to listen to something that doesn't sound good quality.
Well, it has to look interesting.
Well, it's a thing. It's like, I mean, and that's kind of like a burden. Like, oh, everyone's trying super hard to stand out, that they're actually producing not great things. Sometimes it's just like trying to be different.
Yeah.
But there's also the factor of like, you know what? If you do work as hard as you did, if you do, you know, I guess the packaging is a sense of like, what's my artwork like? And did I record it properly? Did I mix it well? Does it sound good? Like, can you hear the difference in my record compared to the other person that's releasing their music? You know, not that comparing's everything, but like, there's so many songs. I can go on Spotify. I can go on like TuneCore or DistroKid on any one of these things and just post anything I want. Like I could literally hit a drum for like an hour and I could post that.
Yeah, I know
that
what
would
you're
be
talking about.
available.
Yeah, it is available. It's already available.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like because that exists, you know, it is a huge factor. Packaging is more than just, hey, look at my album cover or my CD. It's more than just like I post on social media. It's like, what does this all mean? And
well,
how does it come
that's
together?
why you have to network. You have to communicate. You have to go out there and talk to people and play shows and make yourself visible.
Yeah.
And when you make yourself visible, like doors will start opening.
Interesting. Make yourself visible.
You have to. Yeah, I think that's the takeaway.
Do you think that applies still today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. It's like it's not about who you know. It's like making yourself visible that someone you want to know, you know, would make themselves available to you to talk to you. Like that's how you get those doors open in the first place, is because you put yourself out there. And like I've come this far on my own, and you know, someone would see that and like, oh, maybe I should help this kid out.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's something here. He's got the drive to go somewhere with this, so we should pay attention to him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to a woman named Susan Markheim. She's very high up at Geffen Records, and years ago she's a friend of my mother's, and so I just kind of had that nice little in. We were talking, and she made a comment. She's like, these days, and this was a few years ago, so I'm sure it's a little different now. It's even harder, but she said these days, labels or people that you might want to know, they won't even look at you if you don't have a certain amount of followers.
Yeah.
If you don't have a certain amount of like, hey, they've put this much into building themselves.
Yeah, but that whole thing's a mess right now.
Of course.
Because when we were coming up, it was MySpace fans.
Oh man, MySpace.
But that was the metric of how successful an independent band was how many followers they had on MySpace, and now it eventually became like YouTube streams. You know, or like all the metrics are a mess. Now there's all these different platforms for listening to music.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to gauge what impact or reach a band actually has anymore. Like the era that we were coming up was like when CDs were still a metric.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just saw them tanking year after year. You know.
Well, it was interesting because the point was like, you know, like what you're saying, that you said that you see this kid, they put so much work into it. They're obviously not helpless.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like the most recognizable factor. Even as a musician to musician, like you always recognize when someone is really putting the work into it rather than just like, I have talent, I'm just kind of waiting around.
Yeah, but if you can't, why would you put any time into you know, a project or a group that can't even, you know,
hold it together,
push it together by themselves? Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it. Honestly, like I think like communication in a business sense is more important than talent. In some cases, as far as, you know, some of those bands are concerned that get popular or famous, that has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. I mean, what are we doing? We're communicating, right?
Yeah.
We're playing music. We're literally communicating with other people. Like we need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a little absurd. I think it's a little absurd when we think that we can just play our music and then go into the dark. Like our music says enough. Like the music's supposed to be like the almost like the victory lap. Like it's a great thing to share, but if you can't be a person, if you can't, like, especially with social media and stuff, like if we can't relate to you, not even on a sense of like, oh, we got like the same things, but if I can't look at you like, oh, that's a person sharing something, then I'm not, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, they did that music, but who's doing that?
Yeah,
because that matters now.
Yeah. And we were so excited about what we were doing, though. I mean, like,
and you can feel that.
Yeah, it was so much fun to play it, and then the shows were electric, and it was a lot of fun. So
that's rad. Yeah. I love that. It's damn so young too.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you guys were that young.
We were. And I got out of high school and I did my first tour, and that was like a trial by fire. Our first tour was almost a disaster. I almost thought it would break up the band, just because we were touring like the East Coast in the middle of winter. The band had like no AC.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and we were on the road with some pretty hard hitting bands. It was like Exodus and Arsis, and it was pretty cool. But we didn't know what we were doing. We'd go out and eat at like a Denny's every night with the money we made from selling T-shirts or the guarantee from the show. We weren't budgeting ourselves, and when we came off that tour, we were like $40,000 in debt.
Holy crap!
And the van was broken because we destroyed it.
Oh my! So you guys what? 18?
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
Well, it was like, well, fuck, what are we gonna do? But we were lucky that we had a really good manager, and he was the president of a record label, Century Media. His name's Marco Barbieri.
Wow.
And he really believed in us, and he thought there was something to us. So when we hit the next tour, we hired a tour manager. And we got a lockbox, and me and one other guy were the only ones that knew the password to the lockbox. Not to say anyone was stealing, but we needed to,
make sure it stayed there.
We had to treat it like a business, and we had to account, and we started keeping track of what we made and the T-shirt sales.
Wow.
And we came off of that, and we paid off the debt, and we were back.
That's crazy. What a wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
It sounds like you guys messed up, but like shit, 18-year-olds, you guys were only 40,000 in debt, touring that big. That's props to you. You guys came back from that. Like, that's impressive.
Well, yeah, it's mind blowing how much money went through, and how much money kept going through, because we weren't making anything.
Yeah,
but we were able to stay afloat. We were able to keep on rolling.
Keep playing your music.
Yeah.
Damn, man. You just went straight from high school to the road. I mean, missed out on a lot of you learned it's kind of like those adulting years from like 18 to 21 where you're like, if you don't go to college, of course, like there's always there's a window of like, all right, now I make my schedule, and like you guys had to like learn that on the road. That's metal. That's what that is. That's metal.
Is it? I mean, talking about growing up fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be responsible. Yeah, being like it's not a party it's not an easy gig.
No.
Yeah, you have to work. You're always working.
Yeah. Like what's that movie? Almost Famous. Have you seen that movie?
That's a great movie.
I love
one of my favorite musicians is in that movie. He's Mark Kozelek from Sun Kil Moon. It's like really soft acoustic guitar music.
Yeah.
Super sad, but
yeah, that movie is one of my favorites of all time.
It's a great movie.
But I'd love it because like it totally makes the rock star life seem all glamorous, and then it totally just takes this deep dark turn. Like, wait a minute, that's been going on the whole time. We just didn't notice it. I
think I forget the way it all ends up, but I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, that's why I love it so much, because it's like it's very much like, oh man, these rock stars are so big, and it's this little kid, trying to write a story about them, and it's just this beautiful journey of like we believe them to be these gods and like party all the time and just live such a great life, and then as the movie goes on, you get little hints of like what's actually going on, what they're actually going through. By the end of it, you're just like, I hate these guys, like they're just such scumbags, and then it's slowly you kind of step back. You remember that scene where like the kid and the guitar player are in his room together?
It's been a minute.
But anyway, it's such a great movie for that sense, because it totally shows you like, wait a minute, not that that's exactly what it's like, but it's the idea of.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying. A lot of the bands we ended up touring with were my heroes when I was a kid, and I got to see them really like close and personally. And some of them were amazing people.
Yeah.
And some of them I couldn't care to think of again for the rest of my life.
Well, do you remember who was that you met and you're like, wow, these are awesome people? I mean, was there like?
Yeah, I mean, so the first tour was really tough, but that band Exodus, they knew that we were kids, and instead of ignoring us, they kind of helped us out a lot. Like, this is how you do this. They took us under their wings, and they didn't have to.
Wow.
But they kind of helped keep us together and keep us driven.
Good for them.
Yeah, and that was a really like gracious thing of them to do. Honestly, just walking up to us and seeing if we were fed,
Did someone feed the kids?
Yeah, but it was like a community, because you go out there for 5 or 6 weeks, and a tour. It was like they were always packaged tours. There'd be like 4 or 5 bands, and then there'd be like a big crew. All the roadies, all the sound guys, the drivers, front of house. And you really get close to these people, and you really get to know them, and you really depend on each other to get through it, because it's trying to do all that traveling and all that driving, and no one's really sleeping a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about this a little bit before I got here, but you walk up to a show and you see the band on stage for like an hour rocking out and having the time of their life, but the other 23 hours is
complete.
It's a nightmare, like breaking down or just jumping in a van or a bus, traveling. Maybe you don't even get to sleep. Maybe you have to get on a plane and fly to another show or something.
Yeah. Still show up for the show and be, the rock star.
Yeah, but that network of people is really important.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love that. That's I hear that a lot these days from people that have been on the road. They make very, very big point as to share how important everybody is to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And not just to be like the person like, oh, everyone matters. Like, yes, but like they really make an emphasis like what you just did, talking about this is a community. We are doing this just because we're on stage, like without all this, yeah, the show couldn't happen, but we also wouldn't be alive. Like we wouldn't be people at the end of the day. We wouldn't have normal emotions. We'd just be like zombies after all this. So.
Yeah. And that's almost the same skill that we were talking about earlier, is communication.
Yeah.
Making yourself available and being able to talk to people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I think it's a very hard thing to do for a lot of us. I mean, not you.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it's not, but you just have you have a very big heart. As in the years that I've gotten to know you, yes, we're gonna get a little cheesy. The years that I've gotten to know you, you have a very, very big heart, and you're very passionate about everything you speak about, everything you share, which makes it easier to connect. Some people are just like so exhausted and so this and that they can't even tap into those things. So to be able to tap into that side of yourself is a skill.
Thanks.
100%.
I appreciate that, man.
Rock and roll. Oh. So with all this chaos going on, was there like a moment that you look back and like that was the success? Like as a band, as a guitar player, as a kid that was a fan of all these people, like because we all have like we are idols and that's success, right? That's the successful rock stars, and here you are going through this journey. Was there that pinnacle point where like I'm successful or I've made it in that sense?
No, because I don't think that's why I did it. I did it because I loved doing it. I loved playing, and I had something that I wanted to share or say or do, and that's what drove me to do it.
Yeah.
The happiest I was always when we got out of the studio, when we finished a record, because it took so much to get there.
Yeah.
Like like a year of touring, and then you come off the road, and you have to write these songs, and like I was telling you, like there was one time where we only had 2 months to write a record, and so we were in the studio every day, and then we were in the studio for 2 weeks, and then we came out with it was like I was so proud of it because we worked so hard.
Yeah.
And it was fucking badass. I was really proud of it. And that was just that. It was like I felt like I accomplished something. Like, because if I die and disappear, at least these songs. There's like a record of these songs. There's a record of this moment or this idea, and that's like encapsulated for the rest of the time. And
that's so important.
I could breathe because when you write all these songs and you don't record them or you don't have a way to save them, you're always worried like this might flutter off or
forget it. What happens? Well, because think about it. When you were growing up, holding that album, being able to put that CD in or whatever, whatever device or technology you had at the time.
It's magical, man.
Like when you hear that track, it's like you're there.
Yeah.
I have the chills just thinking about it.
When I look at some of these classic records you have on your wall, that's back when you bought CDs. I remember when I bought it. Remember how I was feeling like that day? I remember how I felt when I put it on for the first time.
Yeah.
Or the first time I heard one of the, the bangers, Yeah,
absolutely.
You create like really big memories and
it's like, and then all of a sudden you get to a place where like, I can do that. At least we live in a technological age where we can do that.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's not talked about enough,
Yeah.
It's really not talked about enough.
But that's why, I think people get into doing creative stuff is because they have a taste for it.
Yeah.
They know what they like and
can't help it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just totally brush over how incredible being able to record and share music is. Distribute it at that level. Let people have that feeling. Because you never know. Like, I won't name names, but a friend of mine, he's a songwriter, once asked me, he's like, I don't know if I want to continue to do this. I think I might just want to work and help other artists, with songwriting. I was like, you can do both. He's like, no, I don't know if I want to continue to write my music. I don't know if it's worth me going through all this trouble and this struggle to release my music. And I'm like, why? And he goes off about, well, I'm not made it, I'm not successful, all those generic answers.
Yeah.
And it's funny, as the more we talked, I kind of realized, like, one song, you can record music. There may be someone out there listening to it that it's changing their life. Like the story of Sugar Man. Do you know that story?
Oh, that's a great film.
That's
an amazing film.
That's the perfect example. Like that could happen, not for the sake of your success, but for the sake of people getting through something, people feeling that feeling when you heard that record.
And he saw it through. He made those records.
Yeah.
I think he made 2 records or something.
He made the first record and they dropped him.
Yeah, but the record made its way to South Africa or something. And
it was like some tourist found it, took it back. I think it was like a girl, and she showed her boyfriend, then showed her friends. And it like inspired a revolution.
It was a music for a revolution. And they're beautiful songs. And there's a lot of, and that's the kind of music I'm into. I'm always digging through old weird stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much amazing stuff out there to find. And then you kind of touched on something that I kind of want to talk about because
absolutely,
one of the drummers in my band's he's a great drummer. He did a podcast and he was talking about creative depression.
Creative depression,
and that's
wow.
being like unsatisfied with where you are artistically or where your art is.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That makes sense to me, but I think you have to set goals for yourself, and not like a goal like I want to be in a big rock band or something, but something that you can reach. Like by the end of the month, I want to finish a new song. You know, by the end of the week, I want to like finish another new song. Maybe like by the end of the month, I'll have like a little EP that I could put out. You set goals that you could reach, that you can meet, so that you are making progress. Because it's really easy to like just feel like you're not getting anywhere or you're running your wheels in the sand.
So let me ask you something on that, because I like that. I like the idea of reasonable goals. Because we're so quick to set these huge goals. Like, I can set it this far away in the future, so it's realistic.
And it's so easy to be overwhelmed.
Like, it doesn't change. You can set it tomorrow or 10 years from now, and it's still going to be just as big and overwhelming, right? It's not going to change. You're just giving yourself more time to be anxious. But I feel like even the reasonable ones, like say like today is, what's today? Today's Monday? Yeah, today's Monday. Say by Sunday, I say, okay, I want to record the guitar tracks for one song. That's a reasonable goal by the end of the week. Very reasonable goal.
Yeah.
However, you get busy, you're doing stuff. One day goes by, I forgot to do guitar tracks. I'll do it. Okay, I have another 5 days. Goes by, and you realize that you have had the time, and you had never sat down to do it. And then Sunday comes around, you didn't reach that goal, and then you have this meltdown. So, and like, yes, in hindsight, you should have just made a schedule. You should have been much more organized. You should have just done the damn guitar tracks. But the point is, you're there now, and you're feeling that, and you're getting even more discouraged. Do you have what's your opinion on coming out of that, like getting re-encouraged?
I don't know. I just want to segue, because what you're talking about is procrastination. It's almost like as animals, humans aren't really made for this world that we built for ourselves.
That's great.
Because everyone's a procrastinator.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when you realize that you didn't do what you said you wanted to do, that's the moment where you're just like, fuck it, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to sit down right now, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know? But maybe sometimes you aren't feeling inspired, and I think it's important to recognize that. Like, I don't always, every day, every week, try to make music. Because I think if you try to force it all the time, you'll get burnt out on that too. It's a good exercise though, because every time I sit down and I feel like I tell myself I'm gonna make something, I'll make something, and maybe I'll get interested in it and I can't stop, and I'll stay up all night until I'm done with it, or maybe I'll forget about it and never look at it again. That's fine, but it's just being able to start that process. So just pull up the chair, and get behind your drum set, pick up your guitar, turn on your computer, whatever it is, however it is you create art, not even music. Just be able, just get there.
That's interesting. So maybe it's not even reasonable goals. Maybe it's goals that you set, creative goals that have open ends to them. Like, don't set a goal like I'm going to record guitar tracks. Set a goal like I'm going to record something.
Well, if that's your problem, it depends on how much trouble you have procrastinating,
Well, yeah, absolutely. Procrastination is a huge factor. Huge factor.
But I understand. I think you need to create, you need to give yourself deadlines. That's how we created that record I was really proud of. We had 2 months to record it.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 weeks to finish it. So I mean that put a fire under my ass. I don't know that I'd ever want to do that again.
But it was its own experience.
But it would have never have happened otherwise, and I'm really proud of it. So sometimes it's good to put yourself in these little give yourself something to shoot forward.
Deadlines, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much we will distract ourselves. But yeah, creative depression, that's such an interesting
I've never heard that word before, and these guys were talking about it.
Yes, this is the first time I've heard it. When you said it earlier, I was like, wow, I've never actually thought about, creative anxiety, that's tossed around like, everything. I have anxiety for this and this and that, which makes sense, but that could also be boiled down to a certain amount of procrastination as well. But creative depression seems very different.
It's like not seeing what your work go as far as you want it to do, or it doesn't do what you want it to do. You have to ask yourself, why isn't it going where I want it to go?
Yeah. Is
it not very good? That's probably not the case,
Or also, like, what the destination you wanted to go, is that really something that you want? Is that really something that is supposed to happen?
Maybe, yeah. It's kind of a balance of maybe I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I like you were talking about earlier, the idea that you continuously work on something, like you put all this heart and soul. Like so many of us, we put so much of our time and effort into something, and according to our own energy exerted, it's worth something now because we gave so much to it.
Yeah.
Thinking like, why isn't everyone else, like, why isn't it becoming something of worth? When in reality, like, just because we put this much time doesn't mean it's there yet. Like,
do more, do it again.
Yeah.
That's the other part of it, is that you have to finish, and you can't just do one thing and say, there, I did it. You have to do it again and again and again, because you're going to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's just no it's like shortcut to that too.
No, you have to work. You have to put time into
Just
it.
continuously like bang your
But
head
you have
against the
to
wall.
finish
Yeah.
what you start, though. I think that's the most important thing. You have
like
to finish
that.
what you start.
I like that.
Yeah.
Especially creatively.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not going to do anything, even if you don't like it at the end of the day, even if it's just something you're going to put aside, just it was for you.
Yeah.
Like follow through.
Well, it's an exercise, and if you never actually finish anything, how are you going to expect yourself to finish something 2 weeks on the, you know?
That's
Yeah.
once again, one of those things that's so obvious, but like, yeah, when's the last time you had someone tell you that?
Yeah.
I get that's awesome. I
Yeah.
like that. You have a very healthy mindset for the creative world. I like it.
I don't know.
I hope there's a lot of people listening to this and like understanding and being able to look at these flaws, because we all have them. I mean, we're creatives. We all have this stuff. from
Oh,
time
yeah,
to time.
absolutely. I'm far from perfect.
Yeah. So it's great. So outside of your, being a guitar player, whether it was in Warbringer or now in your life, like out in the creative world, outside of being a guitar player, and I feel like you've touched on it a lot already. What were your roles? Well, in your opinion, what was your role? In the band, starting the band, writing music. Because you're the guitar player, we get that. But what was your role as a person?
Oh, I mean, I guess I had to take on leadership roles, and that's just trying to find people's strengths, and trying to like utilize them, and setting goals for the whole group, or the whole, again, that's something I had to do. I mean, at one point I had to manage the money on a day-to-day basis on the road, and keep in contact with the managers and the label, or even the merchandising companies or shipping companies. There was a lot more to it than just playing in a rock band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, even like on stage, for example, like were you the showman?
Oh yeah, I went nuts. I lost myself. I love that. That's the thing I miss the most about playing metal.
You just lose it.
I felt like a different person.
Oh, that's so great. I love metal.
It was fun.
I mean, especially like guitar players know that trigger. It just feels so good. It feels right.
I probably showed off more than I should. I'd always pick up my guitar by the whammy bar and throw it over my head, and I had to change my strings every night or I'd break them, because I'd always.
Jesus,
I
you
love
were
it.
hardcore. I love it.
Yeah, we went. Yeah, the band was a high energy band.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine Warbringer being low energy on stage, just standing there.
Oh yeah, I have a word, high testosterone. It's a high T music.
High T music.
And I joke, but now I'm playing low T music.
Low T.
Yeah.
Hi-fi and lo-fi, but now it's testosterone based.
It's more relaxing. It's easier to do.
So growth-wise, as the years went on, being in the band, leaving the band, like all that stuff, where did you see the most growth as a guitar player and as a person?
Oh, yeah, after the band, because that's one of the reasons I left the band, is because I got tired. Like we would tour 10 months out of the year, and I did that for like 7 years. And then we'd be home, and then I had to write a record, and I had like maybe 4 months to write a record. And then I had 2 injuries, so I went in for like surgery, and I'm like writing the record on the computer, and then as soon as I recover, I'm in the studio, like putting holes in my stomach with all the aspirin I'm taking, tracking the thing.
Jesus.
So yeah, it was starting to kill me, and I knew that if we stuck with it, if I stuck with it, I'd be making more money, or the band would be more successful. That's granted, but I didn't think I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I got, it was right out of high school. I didn't feel like I got to live or do a lot of the other things that I might have been interested in.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I would be interested in. So yeah, I made the decision to leave the band, and
How old were you when you left?
Probably 26.
Wow.
27.
That's a lot of years dedicated to that.
It was. I put everything into it.
Wow.
And I just decided it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And I'll tell you though, in the time since, I've never been happier, because I've been able to do different things. Like as soon as I left the band, I bought a mandolin. I started taking mandolin lessons. It was a completely different instrument.
Yeah.
Or I developed like an interest in jazz. So I started learning like different styles of guitar playing. I was able to like try doing different kinds of music. And I just felt more fulfilled, I guess.
So was it difficult to adjust to a new lifestyle after the band? Did you have trouble going from like on the road to just?
No, I mean, I love traveling. I love feeling like I was a part of the fucking circus, but it was nice to have some stability. Everyone wants that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Was there like I guess you were so used to like so constantly seeing and playing shows all the time. Was there like a crash internally of like going from playing shows all the time to just kind
No,
of hanging out?
I mean, I was sick of it, so it was pretty easy just to be like,
You're ready to put it behind you.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, I think, I mean, that once again is really impressive to me to be 26 and to have basically been doing what, I mean, we all think we want to do when we're teenagers, right?
Yeah.
You know, been doing it, and to have a band knowing that it can become successful, knowing it can give us up, but being able to recognize your person getting lost, your happiness slightly diminishing, and recognizing that is really impressive. And to be able to make the actual decision to do it.
Well, I looked at all my heroes. You know, I looked at what their marriages were like, what their lives were like, and they all seem to have like a dependency or a problem, or you know, and that's not true for every musician, but in this metal world, like the way it worked was you make money on the road, you're constantly on the road, you're constantly working. That's how you do it. And if you love and if you believe in what you're doing, don't stop.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess I started to second guess myself, and that was more than enough for me to say I'm out of here.
So did the second guessing come from the fact that there was a lot of other stuff that came along with the band that was overwhelming and like hurting you, or was it just the music itself?
It's just like, you know, if I walk away from this now, will I ever get back into it again? You know, and I was okay with that.
Interesting.
But I'm still playing music now, though. I didn't stop playing music. I didn't stop writing.
Yeah,
and like I was
course.
trying to say, I've learned more. I've like opened, you know, I've gotten to so many more things. It's been, as a person, I feel more enriched and a lot happier with what I'm doing now than what I was doing then.
Yeah.
And that's more important than playing for like a few thousand people or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's so great. That's so great.
And that's how the band started. We were doing it for ourselves. We were just trying to make ourselves happy. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could put a CD together like our heroes, you know, or, you know, it's always how I've operated.
Just want to share what you want to share.
I want to be excited about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, I want to do something that makes me happier, fulfill some desire I have, some creative itch.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, because if we would boil it down to a very simple form, like being excited about something means that you're probably going to want to share it. And music is very much a shared thing. Like, I created this, listen to it, share it, you know. And if you can keep that, if you can come from that place, it's probably going to be the most genuine. It's going to reach.
I want to get turned on about, you know, I do stuff that turns me on, I guess. That's what I'm interested in making.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, because I feel like this is maybe it's not, but I've been very curious. Right after Warbringer, you walk out on this, you move on, you basically start.
I get a job at a guitar shop.
Is that really that's the first thing you did?
Pretty much.
Was that instrumental?
Oh yeah, I wanted to make money. I didn't make that much money in the band.
So you leave Warbringer, and the first thing you do is you get a job at a guitar shop.
Pretty much.
That's awesome. So what was the mindset there? Was it just like a money thing? Was it like I
wanted a job, but I loved guitars and I love music, and I still wanted to be around it. I didn't want to turn away from music, and it just looked like, why not? Why not sell guitars? Guitars are cool.
So why not teaching or like studio work or any of that stuff?
I'd love to teach, but I wanted to go to school. So all the while I was working, I was going to school.
Right on, man.
Yeah, and then in the last year, I stopped working, and I've been doing college full time.
Wow.
On my last couple of quarters of that.
Dude, that's rock and roll. I love that. It's just like, well, I like this stuff. And you know what's crazy is you know way too much about everything. You're one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met. Like, I used to walk, when you were working, I used to walk in and point at things and be like, hey, that. Like, well, what? How does this work? And you would break it down. I don't even think if you remember, but you used to break the stuff down. I was like, what?
Yeah, I'm a nerd and I love that crap. So.
I love having people around like you that know all that stuff because it fascinates me so much.
Yeah.
I just like, for some reason, like, you know, people are just bad at math. Some people just don't pick up on math.
See, I know what you mean, but I don't think that's true. I think
Okay,
they had
go
bad
ahead.
math teachers.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Honestly, but go on.
No. I totally agree. But like, very much like all this like technical stuff with, you know, so wiring and the voltages and the amps and I mean, I've been playing guitar for 20 years, almost 21 years, dude. I barely know all the names of the parts on it, you know, like, and I've always had such a hard time like understanding what all this is and like knowing how it works. Like, you know, if someone came to me and said, hi, design the perfect amplifier or the perfect guitar, I'd be like, I don't even know where to start.
I mean, there's guys that don't even put together their drum sets, like the guy from Dream Theater. I remember reading that he hasn't put a drum set together since high school, and I thought that was pathetic, you know.
Yeah.
I like knowing how things work. I like setting up my own rig. I like knowing how everything was plugged in. Yeah. Because if something goes wrong, I know what's wrong with it. And I had to learn that stuff because I had to know how to fix this shit.
I guess it was a necessity thing.
It was for me. It was. I felt like it was. Someone had to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that, like, it's not like I haven't tried it, but maybe it's just I haven't had to know.
Yeah, then that's okay.
But I just, like, I'm fascinated. I love that stuff.
Well, you know what you love, though? I'm sure you'd have a difference between all your guitars. You know
yeah.
the differences between your 2 guitar amps you have in there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all that matters. That's what's important. That's what you need to know.
It is, yeah. But it is always fun. I remember I was talking to the guy who runs LA Sound Design. He's like,
okay.
Right in Burbank there.
Yeah.
And I was back there, and he was showing this pedal from some other company. I'm looking around at the floor, and it's just have you been in his little shop?
Mm-mm.
It's literally just like this back shed that's just a floor covered in pedals and amps. And like, and it's great because that's exactly.
What do they specialize in?
It's just a one guy. He designs pedal boards. He designs pedals.
Oh, okay.
He's like the master,
Okay.
LA sound design guy.
Cool.
And he's really, really cool guy, and he's very, very knowledgeable. But I remember walking in, I was like, dude, what does any of this do? Like, that's a drive pedal, that's a boost pedal, that's a drive pedal, that's a boost pedal. Like, I guess plug them all in. I guess I could try to tell you what's going on. But
hey, there's a lot of pros that are like that. They just know how to play, and that's all they need to do.
Yeah.
And they'll hire someone else to take care of that for, and that's cool, you know.
And I'm glad that there's people like that. But I've always been because when they talk about it, I'm like, that is so cool. That's like cooler than someone talking about like they're shredding solo for me, you know.
Yeah.
To see the source of it all is always so exciting for me. But
absolutely.
Someday I'm gonna grasp it. Someday I'm gonna get super nerdy with it. But yeah, I've always loved that about you. It's like just so much fun. Like, hey John, what's that?
I'm sure you know more than you're letting on. Give yourself some credit, you know. I mean, look how you put all this together. This is great.
Yeah. And
you learn by doing it. You have to have the stuff in your hands.
Yeah.
It takes time to get your hands on all this stuff.
Yeah, it takes time. A lot of trade-ins. Like, do I really need this? Can I sell this?
I've been doing that my whole life.
Yeah. It's because it's like we have this equipment that's worth so much, and I could get like we think is worth so much because we gave so much to get it, and then when it comes time to push to shove or whatever it is, it's like, oh man, this is a big deal. What do I do? Do I trade this mic in for this? I mean, I got these mics by trading in a guitar. So
yeah, I sold a car to buy a guitar.
Wow, you went the other way on it. I like it. That's awesome. I love that. I sold a car to buy a guitar.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Totally worth it. Which guitar?
That was a Martin D18.
Ooh.
But I sold that to buy another Martin.
Okay, so what was the wood on the D18?
Oh, that's mahogany. Yeah.
So then you sold that to get what Martin?
A fancier one.
A fancier one.
Yeah.
It's funny. My favorite Martin is my cheapest one.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I like small body guitars now. But yeah, again, you have to get it under your fingers and find out what's actually right for you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
Yeah.
That's I love that.
Yeah.
Nice little nerd out session. So you get a job at the guitar shop, you start selling guitars, doing a great job at that. To go from Warbringer, all this heavy metal, what was your first like music project after that?
Oh, so I filled in for a band that my brother played bass in, and I didn't really care about the bass. And these kids at the show saw me. It was Ross and Karina, and they had a band called Grapevine that they were trying to start. And I didn't know that I wanted to join another band. I thought I was kind of over that for at least the time being, especially playing bass. And they were very green. It was like their first serious band. But there was something special about the way they wrote music together. Karina was a good singer, and Ross was writing these cool little like pop riffs, kind of like garage or 50s kind of riffs. And I found out I really loved playing the bass, and I learned to appreciate the bass. And that's what I got to grow so much after the band. I found out the bass makes everything sexy.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it's so fun to be that guy. I ended up falling in love with the bass, and now I play bass a little bit, you know? And that would have never happened otherwise.
That's so cool. Do you still play with them?
Oh, yeah, we still play. Yeah, we've done 3 records, and it's just been amazing watching them grow. That's awesome. I think everyone's really proud of the 3rd record we did. It sounds a lot different than the previous records. And we went and recorded it in like 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And we had an amazing guy working with us to mix it and master it. He did a great job.
So have you continued to like work on independent projects, or has it just been kind of like school and that thing?
School's been killing me, but it's fun too. I like being challenged, but it's been taking time away from music, which is kind of hard for me to accept. But I mean, it's just kind of how life goes sometimes. But I'm still very busy. I'm starting a hardcore band just for fun. Haven't played anything heavy in a while, and
it's time.
I heard some stuff. I'm like, I could do this. I could do that better. I'm better than that. So it's competition was actually something that drove the band a lot. Even competition between me and the other guitar player. That's how we grew.
Which funny is so many stories of that being an issue, right? Like fighting over the limelight or the.
It's a healthy balance,
Yeah.
and we would share that, but it's something that it is
It pushes
it
you.
puts a fire under your butt. Yeah. That's something that always pisses me off and makes me do something. I could do it better than that, so I'll go and do it.
I think that's a great attitude. Because I mean, how many times are people discouraged when they see something that's challenging their level of skill in anything, right? Like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like,
but we grow from challenges. I like to be challenged, and that's why I'm always trying to push myself. So.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And then
I think that's a really hard thing to do as creative people in general.
Yeah.
It's very hard to, one, it's hard to take criticism, or at least learn the proper way to take criticism. And then two, to have someone challenge what we're doing with what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's almost like we make it out to be this hard pill to swallow, but it's not that at all. It's just like someone else doing something like, hey, they're doing that and it's better than what I'm doing. Like, I need to practice.
How do I get there?
Yeah. How do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I get to that level?
Yeah. Because, I mean, some people are freaks. There's definitely some guitar players out there that are freaks. I had to accept that a long time ago. Like, I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm going to keep working at it.
Yeah.
I don't need to go there.
I'm never going to be in Ray Malmsteen. I'm never going to be, Steve Vai with all this crazy.
You don't need to be, though. You just need to be
them.
yourself.
Yeah.
You just need to be yourself and find your own voice, because that's what they did. And that's what makes them who they are.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing that we forget.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge thing. All these guys you look up to, all these, just amazing musicians, amazing artists, anybody, like, they just listened to themselves and wanted to be their best self, and that's what came out,
Yeah.
The technique, the practicing, that kind of becomes just easy, fun work when you really just want to show what you've got. And I wish that was more the attitude. Like, you should teach a master class on how to be healthy in music. how to take a healthy approach to, loving music. I would pay for it. You have your first student right here. Do it, damn it.
Yeah. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I love that. So you grew a lot after you left. Now, during your time in the band, looking back now that you're out of it, with that perspective, do you think that you grew as a person or grew more as a person in the studio, on stage, on tour? Like, what part of that whole process was the most growth oriented?
I don't think any single experience was more important than another one. We're made up of like all of our experiences that we experience over a lifetime. So I'm not sure I know how to answer that.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine.
It's every damn mistake I've ever made. Just try not to make that mistake again.
Well, because I think it's more for me. What I'm saying is, as a guitar player, I grow as a guitar player when I record. Because it's a high demanding, right?
Yeah, I mean,
as a person, it's different, right? Like, so.
Yeah.
For me, like, I don't know. I've never been on tour, but I can make the assumption that maybe being on the tour bus with, say, people close by, in close quarters with these people all the time might be where might ignite the most growth because I'm forced to.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the trial by fire. I grew so much as a musician after being on the road with professional musicians. I had to play on that level. I had to be able to hit a certain bar every night, night after night. Sorry.
You're good.
So yeah, but then in the studio we had this crazy producer on the third and fourth record, Steve Evett. Did like Sepultura. He's worked on the Cure records, a lot of like big New Jersey records like Story of the Year or something. But and Dillinger Escape Plan. Have you ever familiar with them?
Oh yeah.
Okay, the guy would make me punch like he would give me like a second to punch something in, and he would like just chop the ever loving shit out of something, and it was so crazy how sharp his ears were. Like, your hand moved an inch, keep your hand, like. Just like,
really,
yeah, it was nuts, and like, and he was from New Jersey, so he'd get pissed really easy, and I didn't want to piss him off because I loved him and I wanted him to like me, So I eventually I murdered it. He really like,
he pushed you where you needed to be.
Yeah, because I didn't want to chop the stuff up. I wanted to play it all the way through.
Yeah. That's how I record.
Yeah,
one like start to finish.
But just what he was hearing, I didn't even know how to hear things like that.
That's crazy.
Kind of like a level of consistency that I didn't, I
wasn't even aware of. So there's a lot of knowledge gained then.
It's just levels of awareness, Yeah.
Wow. Damn, we could hear that?
Yeah, you could hear if your hand moved.
Moved? I mean,
because like when you're chugging the strings, if you're right on the bridge, it's really tight. It's like, because it's and the further up you go if you're palm muting, the more it chokes out, and it could get like, so it could be a nice like boom, or it could be like a boom.
And he would hear that.
Because it depended on the part, but everything, to get everything locked up, to make everything heavy, yeah.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing is there was a lot of like you wanting to live up to what you were surrounded by.
Yeah, what the goals I set for myself, you know.
Interesting.
And it's part of that too is like being heavy has nothing to do with tuning down.
Yeah.
No, it's about like rhythm and timing and
Yeah.
and the groove and how well everything syncs up with that.
Yeah, I think that's a very misunderstood thing too.
Yeah,
like,
so
you got to groove.
It's an awareness with that, you know, whenever locking in.
So I wonder, do you think that's something we should all try to do in our personal environments, like me in my studio here, right? Or someone in their bedroom, or they're in their own space, their own art studio, whatever it is. Do you think we need to set up environments that make us want to live up to certain expectations? You know, because like if you're playing and, you know, that guy is recording you, you want to, all of a sudden you want to be a better guitar player. You want to live up to that, you know, live up to that level that he expects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily a negative thing. It's a good expectation because it pushes you to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely good expectations. Do you think we need to find independently by ourselves a way to make our environments or set goals that have enough, like have expectations that are high enough that force us to be better?
Yeah. My point of setting goals is not something that you've done before. Something new.
That's
Yeah.
very wise. I like that's very wise. It's once again, it seems very obvious, but you know, like setting goals, like, oh, I'm setting this goal. This is something I've done before. I think
we're modifying as we talk about it.
Yeah.
I think we're modifying what the advice would be. But try to do something new.
That's
absolutely.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it because it's so hard to create that environment for yourself without roasting yourself. You know, setting such high expectations for yourself.
Well, I mean, I put out so many songs that are terrible. When I was learning how to use a DAW, or when I was learning how to sing, or when I was learning how to use synthesizers, I would try writing songs without touching a guitar. You know, so just, and like I sucked at it. It sounds horrible.
Yeah.
But you know, I did that like 30 or 40 times, little mistakes. So it's a bit better now, you know.
But see, that's a perfect example. Like you put yourself in an environment to rise to the occasion. Like you took the guitar, like you're comfortable with the guitar, you take it out of the mix, and now you're forced to do something that you've always, you know, quote unquote, done so well, but you don't have your number one tool.
Yeah.
So like that's one of those. That's a perfect example. Like that's a great environment to put yourself into, you know, to force yourself to grow.
Yeah.
Like I think we need to find more, and I mean, I'm gonna be on the search to find more examples of like situations that we can give ourselves, almost like self-testing. You know, to keep things interesting. You know?
Yeah.
But because it's funny, I get excited sometimes, you know, when things come along where it's like, what if I just didn't play guitar? What if I just, you know, used the MIDI keyboard and made some sounds and made a song?
It's healthy sometimes.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And you get so stuck in your patterns that you know on the guitar.
Yeah.
It's really like it feels great to break out of that, and it's so that all the musical stuff's taken through your brain. But
it's like new sound.
But it's a different process or different way of approaching that. It's a great feeling.
That.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you a personal question, at least a question that comes from me personally.
Okay.
In the sense of like, I really want to know, do you have a secret technique, advice on how to record heavy guitars? What is the best way to record heavy guitars? This is a hard question. This is a lot of people have answered this differently, and I've tried a lot of things, and I think this is a very difficult thing to record.
Yeah, it depends on how you want to record the heavy guitars.
We're miking the amp.
Buddy.
Yeah, see? Do you think it's more in the mic placement, or is it more in the mixing and editing after for heavy guitars?
I would say that you need less gain than you think you do, which is surprising. It has a lot to do with mic placement, but it has the most to do with how you play.
Well, yeah.
I mean, honestly though, like, because you could put guitar players on the same rig and they'll sound totally different.
Yeah.
And I've seen people with like the cheapest, crappiest gear and they sound fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with how you play. When I was talking about like getting the timing right to make something sound heavy, that's what makes it heavy. You know,
just right on the.
And you have good taste. You'll listen to the records you like. You know what a good guitar sounds like. You know what a shitty guitar sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like, I mean, I've done so many shows where they just throw an SM57 up on the amp. You know, you learn that you put it right on the cone, it's going to sound too bright. As you take it off the axis of the cone, it gets a little bit darker. It's a taste thing. It depends on the room.
I use a drum tom mic and a 57 to mic my amp.
Yeah. Mixing two mics is great. There's a lot of crazy tricks where what they do is they take a really shitty mixer, like a Behringer mixer or a Mackie mixer. The huge producers will do this. Maybe you've seen this video, but they put the two mics and they sum them on one mixer, so it goes into the interface as one input. but it's 2 mics.
Oh,
so
you
commit to balancing with 2 microphones before you even go on your computer. Because if you have 2 tracks on your computer, you might do something weird, or you're never going to commit to it. When you're recording, the best thing to do is to get it to sound as close as to what you want it to be when you're recording it, when you're performing it. Because if you think you're just going to manipulate everything later, you're not going to be happy with it. You shouldn't have to go on and fuck with the EQ to high heaven to make the guitar sound like how it was supposed to sound in the first place.
Oh yeah, I'm very against a lot. I'm not against it. I mean, even with my acoustic, like everything I record, like I'm recording my sound. Like that should be so flawless. There should be barely editing.
I mean, EQ is a wonderful tool. Oh, I could tell you something fucking hilarious. Do you know Arch Enemy, Michael Lamont, Carcass? Mm-mm. Really famous death metal guitar player. It's a huge band in Europe. He's one of my favorite guitar players. He has an amazing guitar tone. And I remember I was sitting next to the sound guy, and my drummer was asking him, like, hey, how do you mix the live band? You know, he had a huge console, and we're always interested in learning stuff like this. And he's like, well, see Michael up there, you know? And Michael's like checking his guitar. This is what he thinks he sounds like, and he throws it up. And I'm like, oh, it's so badass. There's so much bass, so much low end. You know, it's all scooped and chunky. Like, ugh. You know, and he's like, yeah, this is what he actually sounds like. And he just fucking cut off everything under 100 hertz, 120 hertz. I mean, it was gone. You know, and I'm like, what do you do? But the point is that in a live room, in a live building, if you want the bass guitar or the drums to sound heavy, you want those things to come through. You know, the low end of the guitar has got to go. And I always did that. I always put more low end on my guitar because I thought it sounded cool, but I'm getting in the way of the bass and the drum, and that's
like a mixing thing. Then,
and that's gonna make the guitar heavy. Is being able to hear the bass and the you know.
Interesting.
Wow. So I give you a lot. I give you a mouthful.
No, I really love that. I love that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff. I mean, dude, how many of us young boys and girls getting their first amp and their first microphone and their first DAW as the years go on? You know, we were all there. The equipment adds up, and we finally get to the place where we can record our guitar track. You know, we put that SM57 in front of our amp, and we have no idea what we're supposed to be doing.
I mean, I hate that mic, but it works.
Yeah, no,
and you shouldn't get so obsessed with the tools. I mean, I guess Van Halen, every drum was recorded with a 57, and I never thought they had great drums, but
they did it.
Those Van Halen records sound great. So don't get so obsessed with the mics or what interface you're using, what gear you're using. It's about the performance in the end.
You got to be able to play it.
And there's so many records I love that the production's shit, and it doesn't matter because the songs are so good.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
that's a good point. I think. It's really easy to get super obsessed with the tech and the equipment, and it's fun. Like I love. There's nothing like having good equipment. It's really makes things really convenient. But at the end of the day, if you can't pull it off, you can't pull it off.
I mean, that's something that I had learned to become aware of. I used to always tell myself like, oh, when I get this piece of gear, like I'll be able to do it. You know, but you know, I mean, you have everything you need right here. I have everything I need.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's just trying to be like, you know, like just you have what you need. There's no excuse not to go out and make something today.
Honestly, I think my favorite part about having gear is all the crazy random shit I can come up with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I don't need it all. Like when I'm doing, I'm recording guitar tracks, and I record start to finish, like one take.
Yeah.
Like I have to get the take because that's my performance. I want that to be the kind of essence of the record, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, I don't want one guitar track. I mean, I don't want it to sound like really thin. So I got all these microphones I've accumulated over the years and just placed them all over the place.
Oh, see, but okay. Are you aware that if you have multiple microphones on one source, you're going to get into a world of phasing pain?
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Okay.
I have.
It's gonna sound thinner than shit.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I have my pencil mic over on the perspective, you know, the player's perspective, really high.
Is this for the acoustic guitar?
Yeah, it's for my acoustic guitar.
Okay.
Up here, and I have the big old Genesis, that red mic. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah,
that's like right
is.
on the 12th fret, and then I have two MXLs, one kind of right on the body, and one right on there. It actually doesn't sound bad.
Okay, that's great, and I'm glad it works for you.
But I've had issues.
And you have all the distance. You make sure everything's measured off.
Well, not measured off, but I mean, I'm pretty.
But you see, that doesn't, with all those microphones and all those reflections and all those angles, you're asking for so much. And I know you want to make the guitar sound huge, but try to do it with just two mics. You can make an acoustic guitar sound phenomenal with two mics. Well,
see, my normal setup, what I usually do before this, is I put the pencil and the big Genesis like almost right next to each other just to get those two mics right at the 12th fret.
Yeah.
And that sounds crispy.
Yeah, but I would have one on the bridge and one on the 12th fret so you have a difference. But actually, I would just use a ribbon microphone because a ribbon microphone has a figure 8 pattern, so it gets the reflections of the room and what's in front of it.
Oh, okay.
That's one microphone, and I'm gonna get like a semi-stereo image.
Yeah.
I always try to make things easier for myself, And so much of learning about recording has been like, you really just throw mics at things and find out if it works or not.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I love that.
And that's how you learn doing it.
But that's what I mean. Having all this extra equipment has become just kind of like an experiment of just what is this going to sound like now?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like you really don't need all that much.
I mean, the best drum miking was like the guy that did the Led Zeppelin records is the Glenn Johns technique.
Yeah.
It's 3 mics. It's like one overhead, one on the kick, and then like one off to the side. And they're all like I think like 21 inches away. It's like perfectly done. But it doesn't work for every drummer because the drummer has to be balanced.
Well, I mean, Bonham hit him all so hard, like that worked.
But he had a balanced approach though. Like he wouldn't just destroy a cymbal, you know. So a lot of recording is like, it depends on who's playing, how they're playing, and trying to figure out like how to suit them in a given situation. Interesting. But I just try to keep things simple, and I think that works.
No, I love that. I think it's such a rabbit hole that we can, it's fun to experiment. I encourage everyone to experiment, to discover more sounds. Like some of the best one of the best educations I've ever had is playing with microphones.
Yeah, it's fun.
Against like going from like a heavy metal amp like the Mark V to playing different acoustic guitars and seeing how they respond. Like it's incredible. It's this awesome thing. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to play. Yeah, you have to do your stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes the biggest, richest acoustic guitar sound isn't the right song for a mix or the right sound for a mix.
Yeah. So, I've had to re-record a few guitars.
And that's the thing with the heavy guitar. You think that you want to make it so huge, it doesn't need every frequency. You gotta give everything in that piece a place.
Well, that's such an interesting. Once again, one of those obvious things. That's if I take out the low end of the.
It took me 10 years to figure that out.
That's what I'm saying. It's like but when you realize you're like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like my low end of my guitar is fighting the same frequency as the bass.
That would make it heavy, yeah. Because that's what the bass is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Didn't we say that bass makes things sexy?
Yeah. Bass, even in the heavy stuff, makes it sexy. So, before we go,
okay, I
ask all my guests this: if you had to give advice, now say a kid that's 17, they have a kick-ass band. In your situation, if you could go back and give yourself advice, but we're kind of thinking the idea of anybody that's at, the teenager, late teens, starting a band that they're starting to get recognition, things are starting to pick up, what would be your advice to them?
Oh, that's interesting. What do I wish I heard?
What do I wish I heard? That's good lyric.
I don't know. I made so many mistakes. I got in some pretty dark places, honestly. I just kind of depressed sometimes, even when I was out there. But just, I don't know, just do your best, keep your chin up. I don't know, it doesn't sound great, but just put yourself out there and, be driven, be motivated, love what you do. If you don't love what you're doing, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And just try to find what you love doing. And if you love playing guitar, keep playing, keep writing.
Any warning signs?
Oh, warnings? Yeah, don't fucking party. You'll get sick. You're out there to do a job. And somebody, we were talking about like we don't like recording our friends sometimes, and I know what you're talking about because I love doing it and I love making music with people and I love sharing it with people. And sometimes I get these people, but they think they can't sing unless they're like off their ass, drunk, or high. And there's no one on this planet that performs better intoxicated. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's maybe you have a beer or two before you play on stage. You're not playing to the same level that you are in a room. It's okay to drink a bit if you want to loosen up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't have fun, but you're not going to play any better. You're going to be worse, and you have to.
I agree.
Be wary of those kind of activities because they're only going to hurt you, and you're not. And not to go on too long, but I thought I couldn't be creative unless I was like smoking when I was younger. I don't smoke weed anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't true. I was just as creative. I was more creative. I was more productive when I wasn't screwing around.
It's kind of like accepting yourself.
Yeah, learning to deal with that. Yeah.
I like that. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this, man.
It was fun.
I hope we can do this again. Dive into some more stuff.
Sure.
Don't act like
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm surprised you don't want to talk to me anymore.
Are you kidding? Hell yeah, you run deep, man. You don't realize you run deep.
Thanks, man. So much you're very thoughtful though, and it was nice talking to you.
I appreciate it. Well,
it's the first time we've talked for an hour.
Yeah, it is.
Face to face, it's intimate.
Yeah, it's intimate. Nice dark room, nicely lit. Well, John Laux, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Cool.
Rock and roll.
Right on.
Peace.